In Lees-Galloway.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It gives me a lot of pleasure to speak on the Human-Assisted Reproductive Technology Storage Amendment Bill, which, although a mostly technical amendment bill and a bill that is largely uncontentious and has almost gained complete consensus within the House, is nevertheless noteworthy for some of the reasons that members have already discussed. In particular, the fact that it deals with technology which is changing rapidly over time, and therefore legislation has to be able to keep up with that changing technology, and also that it deals in an area which is very emotive and involves a lot of passion, often a lot of heartache, a lot of difficulty for families. And so knowing that the legislation is absolutely right, that people have clarity about what the intention of the legislation is important. As Hone Harawira said, we're talking about human life and relationships, and it's easy to forget sometimes that all these words on a piece of paper, all the submissions that we hear in a select committee in a very clinical sort of environment, we're actually talking about human life and relationships and people and their desires to grow a family. And it's important that we get these things right. For the most part, it seems that the original bill did have it right. The amendments that are being made in this bill are fairly minor, given the area that we're dealing in, and they really ensure that current practice is legitimate and appropriate and is appropriately accounted for in legislation. I was interested to hear from Heather Roy that when the original bill went to select committee, that there were submissions from either side of the fence, and that it was a passionate argument, and there was a lot of heat in the debate in those days. Quite different from what we heard on the Health Select Committee with this bill, where the submitters were all more or less of one mind and just looking for us to tidy up some aspects of the bill as it was written. That shows how issues can, how people can move on, how issues that seem very divisive can settle down, and people can take the path that was chosen by the government of the day and actually see that as being the right direction. And it's important to remember, I suppose, when the debate seems quite vehement and heated around a particular issue, to stick to your guns and follow a path if you believe it is the right thing to do, and if you know it's the right thing to do. And this bill is one of those that has turned out to absolutely be the right thing to do. This particular bill that we're debating tonight, of course, makes some technical amendments to the original Act, mostly around the storage of sperm, eggs and embryos. And the current 10-year storage limit applies retrospectively and has, of course, caused some practical problems in terms of the way fertility organisations have actually been storing those gametes and embryos. Labor, of course, originally passed the Act when it was in government, and members have acknowledged the work of Di Yates. That's important to acknowledge her efforts in an environment where it was a difficult issue to grapple with. It's much easier for us to look back on that retrospectively now, but at the time it was a difficult issue, and I've no doubt that Di Yates had people lobbying her in all different directions, and the fact that she got this bill, such a good bill which needs such small amount of amendment through in that environment, is something worth noting as well. Fertility treatment and reproductive research has, of course, been rapidly advancing for some time, and Labor was keen back at that stage to ensure that New Zealand kept pace with the changes while ensuring that decisions made are consistent with the value of all New Zealanders. The use of IVF is growing in New Zealand, and today we've already heard that around 5% of couples use IVF treatment, and around 1,150 babies are born annually using embryo transfer cycles. The first baby born through assisted reproductive means was born back in 1978, which, as it happens, was the year that I was born. So it's a year that it sticks in my mind. That well, it explains a thing or two, I suppose. that's just a little over 30 years, and things have developed considerably in that time, and it's important that we keep pace. The main thing this bill does, of course, is to clarify the 10-year storage limit. That actually goes back to when the Act came into force and is not retrospective, as is the current practice. And of course, currently, under the current bill, it would have been unknown, and there was legally some of those embryos or gametes could have been destroyed had they been stored for more than 10 years. The Select Committee did offer up some amendments. It's pleasing to hear from the Minister that he sees those as sensible amendments, and that we can expect those to be supported by the Government. Of course, that includes having a grace period after the 10-year storage limit, and that enables the fertility clinics to have a small period of time within which to ensure that the gametes and embryos are disposed of appropriately, and that they're not sort of constantly having to worry about that issue of having to go through the disposal process. But of course, importantly, restrictions are placed on what can be done during that 6-month period, and that 6-month period is only for disposal. There's no other uses allowed of those materials within that 6 months. Another proposed amendment addresses the possible argument that the storage period established in the bill as introduced would begin when an embryo was created from the stored gametes themselves. That of course would lengthen the period of time if a stored gamete had been stored for say 5 years, and then the embryo was created after that 5 years, and you added an extra 10 years on top of that. That again, it was an area that just needed tidying up to be absolutely clear that the storage period is for 10 years and 10 years only. And of course, ensuring that gametes and embryos stored in other countries, that the period of time that they are stored in a country outside of New Zealand is calculated in the 10-year storage limit. Some recommendations made around the role of the ethics committee, ethics committees, but those have already been well and truly canvassed in the debate this evening. It is important in the opposition's view that the Act does have a review mechanism, and we did express our disappointment at Select Committee and have done this evening that there is still no desire from the Government to include a review mechanism. But again, in an environment where the technology is changing rapidly and in a fast pace, and because it's an emotional and emotive area as well, we think that it would be appropriate to have a review process in place. Having said that, I think we have confidence that should future amendments be needed, that the House will work together and the committees will work together to make sure that that's done appropriately and in a timely fashion. Mr. Speaker, this is a good bill. I think it reflects a bill that was well constructed in the first place. There's been some good work done by officials to ensure that these amendments are tidy, easily understood by people who are operating within the bounds of the Act, and the Labour opposition is very happy to support its further progress.